Up next on MOTV Forecast. As we approach the peak of hurricane season, the Atlantic is right on cue. We have the latest on not one, but two storms that are expected to affect the Gulf Coast anywhere from Texas to Florida this upcoming week. And the West has been dealing with extreme heat and wildfires for over a week. Is there any change on the way? That's all right here, right now on MOTV Forecast. And welcome into MOTV Forecast. Thanks for joining me here today. We have a lot to talk about. We've had a week of a lot of heat and a lot of wildfires out in the West, and we now have two tropical systems that are likely to make it into the Gulf of Mexico as we head into early next week. So a lot to talk about, a lot on the plate. Let's start off with what's going on out there in the West, and we're going to start with that West heat and wildfires. Now we can see here, this is our drought monitor nationally for our country, and we can see, especially in the West Coast, we have a lot of areas where we're seeing those oranges, reds, and deep reds there, and that indicates severe to extreme drought, and that does not help when you get record heat that we have been seeing across the West for the past week. Death Valley did record an unofficial temperature of 130 degrees there, which is very rare. It's been since last century that we saw that kind of heat. Now, as we take a look at the radar right now, we don't see much in terms of drought relief. A lot of dry air across the West, which is helping to aid the threat for some wildfires that we have been seeing over the past week. And one place that is getting in on a little bit of rain today is Seattle, Washington, and we can see that today expecting some showers, a high of 71 degrees, 60% chance at seeing the rain there we saw on the radar. We did have some showers in the area, but as we head throughout the weekend into early next week, conditions should be very beautiful out there in the Pacific Northwest. We're expecting to be seeing temperatures in the mid-70s and no rain in the forecast after today. So that is some good news there. But elsewhere in the West, we're still going to be seeing temperatures very high, very hot, especially in the desert Southwest. Las Vegas expected to get to a high today of 112 degrees. And as we head throughout the next couple days, we can see the heat persists, and we don't get much in terms of precipitation, unfortunately. So not much to help the drought there, and we're going to see that even all the way through the middle of next week. Now, some place where we're expecting the rain to hold off as well, but temperatures hot and muggy will be in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Here in Hebron, Maryland, we can see that temperatures are expected to be in the mid to upper 80s as we head throughout the week, flirting with the 90s as we get into early next week. Tomorrow is our greatest shot at seeing some precipitation with a 60% chance of scattered thunderstorms there. But aside from that, looking pretty dry for the rest of the week into the weekend. Now, as we take a look at Flanders, New Jersey, out in Mount Olive, Sunday is your day where you could be seeing your greatest chance at some storms. Only a 30% chance there with some isolated thunderstorms in the forecast. Rest of the week looks dry. Temperatures in the low to upper 80s depending on your day. But we're definitely expecting to see some nice weather, although a little hot and a little muggy over the next 5 days. Now we want to switch gears here to the tropics, as we do have two storms we are tracking as they are expected to threaten the Gulf Coast at the same time early next week. We haven't seen two hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico at the same time on record, so it'll be interesting to see if we do make that record historically there. We'll see that, but right now, taking a look at Laura's radar, we can see it is right by the Lesser Antilles, just off the coast of Antigua and Guadeloupe there, and it's bringing some disorganized showers, not much in terms of organization yet from this storm, but we are expecting, regardless, it to bring some precipitation to the Caribbean islands. Specifically there, portions of the southern Dominican Republic could get in on 3 to 5 inches of rain. And if we take a look at the tropical storm alerts here, we have tropical storm warnings in effect all the way from Guadeloupe into the island of Puerto Rico. And that will be over the next couple days as the system approaches closer, and we do have tropical storm watches in effect for the northern shores of Hispaniola into the southern islands of the Bahamas. And we can see why when we take a look at our projected path. Laura is expected to move towards the Gulf of Mexico as we head throughout the next couple of days. Early next week is when we expect it to be in the Gulf of Mexico, and right now expecting to threaten more the northeastern Gulf, although we still have time to look towards that. And notice the intensity. We are expecting it to be a minimal hurricane as it moves into the Gulf Coast, but that intensity forecast is all really going to be dependent on whether it has land interactions with the islands in the Caribbean or if it stays offshore. And that will have a huge impact on how much intensity it gains on its way towards the Gulf of Mexico. If it takes a more southerly track over the islands of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and Cuba, there's a lot of mountainous terrain on those islands that could disrupt the circulation, and that would be, in turn, causing a weaker storm, but doesn't mean it will entirely be out of a threat for portions of the Gulf of Mexico, as once it gets into the Gulf, it will have the chance to re-strengthen there. But if it takes a northern track, it's expected to strengthen more so than we have on this intensity forecast, and that could be more problematic for areas down the line once we get towards the northern Gulf coasts in time frame middle of next week. So areas like Louisiana all the way through the Florida Panhandle should be keeping a close eye on this storm. Even if it treks over the mountainous terrain of the islands there, we could be still talking about a pretty significant storm moving through this time around middle of next week. Now, if we take a look at the model forecasts, we can see there's a lot of consensus that's taking it over the northern portions of the Caribbean islands and then making a landfall somewhere between eastern Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle as we head into the middle of next week. So that is something we are tracking there. And if we take a look at the intensity forecast, again, all depends on whether this goes over the islands or stays slightly offshore. And some models bring it up to major hurricane status, but the majority, we want to focus on the majority here. The majority are bringing it to either strong tropical storm force or weak hurricane force intensity right now. But we have seen a lot of trouble. The models have had a lot of trouble with their intensity forecasts so far this hurricane season. So we do want to leave all options on the table. Definitely make sure you're preparing, getting those supplies a little earlier than you would during hurricane season and during these kind of threats, especially with the coronavirus pandemic. There's a lot of supplies in short supply already. Now, if we take a look right now at the southeast radar, we can see there's quite a few storms off of the Florida Peninsula, especially moving into areas like northwestern Florida. And they're staying off of the Florida Panhandle right now, but if we take a look at somewhere like Arapahoe, Florida, that is where we're expecting heavy thunderstorms throughout the day, and a pretty high chance of them too, already getting in on some heavy downpours there. And as we head throughout the rest of the week, we are expecting the chance of storms about a 50-50 shot each day, and temperatures flirting with the 90s as we head throughout the next couple of days as well. So don't be surprised to get that typical afternoon thunderstorm as we head throughout the next couple days there in Arapahoe. Now, the next storm we have to talk about here is Tropical Depression 14. This is going to be affecting the Gulf Coast as well. This one is farther to the west, but nonetheless expected to see some impacts on American soil here. Currently, it is a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression, expected, though, by around this time tomorrow to be potentially a high-end tropical storm with winds of 70 miles per hour, and that would give it the name of Tropical Storm Marco, which is the next name on our list here. And it is expected to have some land interaction with the Yucatan Peninsula, which will weaken it a little bit as we head towards the end of this upcoming weekend, but into early this upcoming week, we expect it to re-strengthen into a hurricane over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Although one thing holding this intensity forecast back is the possibility that we could be seeing some wind shear as we head into closer to the middle of next week as it bears down on the Texas or Louisiana coast. So that might weaken it a little bit before landfall. We still have a lot of time to track that, and you definitely don't want to let your guard down just because of what it's called. We do want to make sure that we're preparing for the worst, hoping for the best with this situation. And already we are seeing tropical storm warnings out for Roatan, and especially as we head towards the Yucatan Peninsula, portions also under a hurricane watch, as it's potentially could be a hurricane by the time it makes its landfall there this upcoming weekend. Now the rainfall forecast, not expecting anything too heavy right now through Sunday. Some spotty areas of 3 to 5 inches on the Yucatan Peninsula. Will focus more on the rainfall threat as we head throughout the next couple days and get a better idea as to its track towards the mainland U.S. But we do have a pretty fair consensus among models right now to bring it somewhere into the northwestern Gulf of Mexico, making landfall right now expected either along the Louisiana or Texas coastlines as we head into early to mid next week. Now, the Gulf sea surface temperatures are very warm right now. This is important for what is both Laura and what is expected to be Marco. And you see this is in Celsius, so we've got temperatures, 30, 31 degrees across the Gulf of Mexico. And in Fahrenheit, that translates to the mid to upper 80s, some areas even flirting with the 90s. So this is very hot bathtub water we are seeing in the Gulf of Mexico, and definitely something that will help to strengthen these storms if they do enter. Although the intensity forecast for Tropical Depression 14, currently we are expecting, either high tropical storm force wind speeds, or getting into Category 1 hurricane strength as we head towards its landfall along the Texas or Louisiana Gulf Coast. So that is currently what we're expecting, although the intensity forecasts haven't been too hot so far this year. So we do want to make sure we're monitoring the intensity forecast, but also preparing for some form of rapid intensification if that were to occur. So we don't want to take this too lightly. Definitely make sure you get those supplies pretty much all along the Gulf Coast if you are in the path of either of these two storms, and keep it here to MOTV4CAST for the latest on these storms. I'll probably have a update on both of these as we head into closer towards their landfalls, so keep it tuned here, and then we'll have another episode of MOTV4CAST this Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Well, thank you so much for joining me here on MOTV4CAST. I hope you have a fantastic weekend ahead, and stay safe, whether you're in the west with those wildfires or in the Gulf with these threatening tropical systems. Signing off, it's Riley Winch.